Back to Ask a Dad. I wanted to do an episode today on aluminum railings and really to communicate two things. One is talk about the Westbury system itself and give a little bit of a product overview and review, as well as an installation guide. And I'll talk about the tools here that you use for the installation in a second, but I want to let you know I've only installed 3 other aluminum railing systems, and this Westbury is by far the best I've ever seen. I was a little concerned not ever installing this one in the past, but it was so easy. I'm done. It went up in a weekend, and all the components were very solid. Nothing was cheap, nothing broke on me. So I wanted to review the product overall and say, if you're considering Westbury, absolutely buy it. It's fantastic. I love it. I couldn't find a lot of videos about it online other than the manufacturer, but I strongly recommend this system. Even if you've never installed aluminum before, it's honestly just about as easy as doing wood railings. So very happy with it. Looking at the tools it took, that was part of the other piece that I enjoyed, was simple install, that you're going to have almost all of the tools that you want at home. One I will point out that you might not have is this bit driver. It's the number 2 square head. That's required for the screws that attach the couplings to the railing. But $3 and you got everything you need. We've got bar clamps, which come in handy. For cutting it, they said there's a couple different ways you can do it. This skill saw with a high tooth blade on it. So I think this one's an 80 tooth blade. You want at least 60, but it's unbelievably smooth what kind of cuts you get out of this thing. The ends of it come out without any burrs, no problems whatsoever, no rough edges. So really thrilled with how a skill saw makes this easy to cut. A couple other things. If you've seen Ask a Dad before, one of the things I always try and point out is my screw ups. And here was my first screw up, is not buying $5 goggles at the beginning. Because what happened is when you cut this, there's tiny little aluminum shavings that go everywhere. And I was wearing normal safety glasses with the sides on them, still got them in my eye, ended up going to an eye doctor and having them removed. That sucked. Spend the $5 for goggles that really protect you a lot more. Let's go up and connect a railing here in just a second. But just wanted to walk through. Oh, this was the other trick I found. Instead of marking on a black railing, this is normal painter's tape. Throw a section of that around where you're going to cut in advance, and then you can mark it clearly with a Sharpie or whatever you use, but just gives you ability to see the line much better. Then you just rip the tape off when you're done. All right, we'll go upstairs next and install this section. All right, so wanted to show you what I've completed so far. The deck is probably 90% done. There's a couple different pieces you want to make sure you order correctly with Westbury. There is a different piece whether you're getting a flat section or whether you're getting the stairs. So make sure you get the right ones. This has a rake that's adjustable on it. I think it's 30 to 40 degrees, so you can adjust the ballast depending on your rise and run of your stairs. You have the ability to adjust this left or right so that you can get your ballasts straight up and down. So that's huge. I love that. The connection type on here, when you're doing 90-degree corners, they have these straight flat connectors that sit flush on here. They're very subtle. The other thing I'll point out is we went with the 2-inch post versus the 4-inch post. I think it's a more modern look and less clunky. So I really like that I went with the 2-inch version, and you can see that they just lag to the deck directly. So rather than have to cut and notch everything on the backside, it was easy just to lag those in. You do need to reinforce underneath there. You have to do at least 4.5-inch lag screws when you lag it to the decking. So if you look back over here, you'll notice the way that this piece is in finish, because we had to run the deck this way. These are not at a 90-degree angle, these two posts. So most of the connectors, as you can see, sit pretty flush. But if you've got connections like this that are not 90 degrees, they make a swivel version. So they make a swivel version that's up and down for the stairs if you need it, and then they make this swivel version that's left to right for situations like this. So here's the actual bracket itself, sit on the post, but you've got, as you can see, quite a bit of leeway between the two sides, so you can adjust it left or right as needed. So if you've got angles like this, make sure you're getting the swivel mounts. Last thing I'll point out is the specific heads. You probably figured this out quickly, but when you're attaching anywhere you're going to be able to see it finished, make sure you're using a head that has the black finish trim so it looks a lot nicer. Then when you're attaching to the actual rail itself, so that fits in here like this, you'll see that this is concave. You want to make sure you use a pan head screw for that, because what that'll do is sit in there flush so that then your caps will sit on there correctly. If you don't use the pan heads, if you use the top ones here, then the brackets won't fit on there because it's a very tight fit. So make sure you're using pan head anywhere that it's a recessed spot. All right, so got myself wedged in the corner here, but this is an important piece when we're talking about height. So I wanted to show you an example of installing the bottom brackets. So again, with the swivel mounts, the reason I use that is I've got to have a piece going straight from here to here. And you'll see that when these sit flush on the post, you've got the ability to swivel them so that I can still get a straight section across there. All right, so these are very easy to install. You just want to set it height-wise on top of this finish ring. Check your code. I think minimum is you have to be 1 inch, but depending on where you are, it might be 2 inches, but you don't want to go any higher than that because you can see the railing up here. With a 36-inch post, you start to get near the top. So set it down low, but just check your code to make sure that you're at the right minimum depth here. And again, when I'm installing these, they're going to be visible after I install them. So I'm using the black heads here. I am wearing safety goggles because a little bit of aluminum can fly out here, so just want to be a little extra careful with this install here. These are self-starting, so you don't need to pre-drill. I did pre-drill some in the beginning, but found that it really wasn't that necessary. So now I'm just getting high speed so they actually drill through the aluminum directly. So as you can see, you really got to wind them up. Higher revolution seems to make it drill faster, and you can see the pile of shaved aluminum that it cuts as it goes. All right, so I'll install one here, put the bracket on the other side, and then we'll measure up the railing. All right, finishing up the railing install here. I was hoping for once to get a single shot without an animal in the background, but here comes Murray. So here's Murray. So one thing I want to point out is that when you're doing shorter spans, you always want to make sure that your ballast is in the middle. So 2 things you have to consider. It's pretty standard code. You can't have more than a 4-inch gap on either side, and the holes, where the railing are notched anyway, we'll make sure that you're not outside of that. But what I want to point out is, because this whole distance once the brackets was in was less than 8 inches, I trimmed both sides to be 3 1/4 inch so that the ballast would be in the center. It's just an aesthetic thing, but I wanted to point it out. So we got my top brackets in, we got the bottom ones in. One thing I'll show you when attaching the railing pieces, there's a rubber guard here on the inside, and sometimes that makes it hard to get them on. So what you want to do is angle this against the side where the plastic is, because if you get that angle right, then you want to be pushing on the plastic side, not on the hard side that has the aluminum fixed railing on that side. So make sure when you're putting them on, you kind of angle it and set it so you're driving up against this plastic piece. They go on a lot easier. All right, final step. So this seated in nice and proper here, and then you install these pan head screws. You can see because it's got the concave opening there. So that means you want to do the matching screw for that. I already put ones on the back side. Just want to show you how easy this is. line it up in the center so it doesn't move. They go in like that. You can see little pieces of aluminum. Then you've got your decorative collars. There's a tab on the back side. And notice these are the rounded ones because the top railing is rounded. The bottom ones are flat. They go in pretty easy. Just give them a little tap though to seat them. This one over here. Really, system's very solid once it's in place. I'm very thrilled with it. Then there's a decorative cap. Give that a whack. And you're done. This is the Westbury aluminum railing system. Highly recommend it. It's easy, do it yourselfer, one-man job.